Welcome back. You're watching Morning Express. Thanks for staying with us. 16 minutes by 7 a.m. Good morning from wherever you're watching us from. I'm Jesse Rogers. I'm joined in studio by James Gakuya, who's the Member of Parliament for Embakasi North via way of Zoom, Senator Rose Nyamunga from Mombasa, and from our city center studios, we have Alex Manyasi, who's a governance expert, as well as a policy expert. Let's take a look at some of the latest political issues bedeviling the country, and the conversation seems to be centered on economy. So it's all to do with the manifestos, where key presidential hopefuls have begun crafting their campaign manifestos ahead of next year's general election, which is exactly 1 year away. But what are the main campaign issues that could inform the manifestos of the main political players? Murimi Mwangi interrogates. Take a listen.
In the campaign to reconstruct the Kenyan economy and manage its skyrocketing debt, one man has been consistent in the conversation. Former Finance Minister and ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi.
We must get the economy working, and working for all Kenyans. And I can tell you, if the economy was working and it was growing, and people are getting jobs elsewhere, the concern about an additional number of members of parliament would not be a big issue.
But turns out it's not only Musalia who is talking matters economy. All other 2022 presidential hopefuls have incorporated different aspects of the economy. Deputy President William Ruto has coined what he calls the bottom-up economic recovery model, which he claims is to pump more resources to the grassroots businesses, with a view to inject an upward trajectory of economic empowerment. Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka is campaigning for what he calls a prioritization of a 24-hour economy, with more focus on the blue economy. While former Prime Minister Raila Odinga has crafted several economic recovery models, beginning with reforms in the civil service to inject more competence and accountability, as well as a rural transformation blueprint that suggests strong policies towards provision of reliable and cheap electricity, as well as cheap water to boost manufacturing at the grassroots, and to drastically cut importation of commodities whose local production capacity has not been met. But why the dominance of the economy in the 2022 conversation?
If you take away that authority to say, I simply have to go borrow as much as I want to spend, to a point where you say, what should I truly spend? That discussion is important. And therefore, once you agree, then the nation as a whole is behind you in seeking to borrow what you're going to borrow.
The message to Kenyans will most likely be the same, because the things that are affecting Kenyans today, afflicting every Kenyan, is money in their pocket. How are we going to manage taxation? It's something that we want to deal with.
Our slogan is Kazi ni Kazi. It's a wheelbarrow. And I find it ridiculous. I saw my colleague Mutula Kalonzo was here the other day making fun about, this wheelbarrow, how can you give people wheelbarrow? His party symbol is an umbrella. Is he distributing umbrellas in Makueni?
In Kenya, you cannot sit and say, this is what I'm going to do about the economy and get elected. Not even if you talk about this is what I'm going to do about spirituality and get people to be behind you. We are about people, and we follow people, and we believe in people. So if you ask somebody, why do you believe in Ruto, they are not likely to give you any sense.
Yet the age-old campaign issue of inclusivity in government has also made a comeback, this time with lessons from the divisive 2017 polls. Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta leading the conversation on platform of the recently nullified Building Bridges initiative that recommends enhancement of the population quota in delimitation of elective units and an expansion of the national executive to accommodate an additional post of Prime Minister and 2 deputies, a proposal that has roped in such presidential hopefuls as Mudavadi, Kalonzo and KANU National Chairman Gideon Moi.
After every election, the country is defranchised. And this defranchising of the country greatly affects our economy. It affects our social setup, that me and my brothers and sisters, we cannot see eye to eye. That's what the BBI is solving.
This BBI should be about us implementing the myriad of laws and the myriad of provisions in the current constitution that can be able to make us a better society and a better nation. But if every time we say, no, this one, it is like somebody who goes to a witch doctor. Witch doctor must come up with something.
Yet one obstacle conspicuously stands out on nearly all 2022 presidential hopefuls: the baggage of the exiting regime, majorly the national debt blamed on alleged economic mismanagement and flop of key Kenyatta policies. Ruto seemingly wielding the heaviest of the burden as the president's principal assistant. While such presidential hopefuls as Odinga, Mudavadi and Kalonzo, some analysts say, wield the tag of blame for relinquishing their opposition role.
It is about political arrangements, political bargaining, political organization. So whoever puts together a bigger coalition that brings more political players together and therefore brings their people behind them is likely to carry the day.
Mudavadi, Kalonzo, Moi and Ford Kenya leader Moses Wetangula have already coalesced under the One Kenya Alliance and are due to unveil a coalition anchored on the same foundation, with Odinga eyeing a likely coalition with Kenyatta's Jubilee Party, where Ruto has been leading a solo campaign under UDA, all teams working tirelessly behind the scenes to craft marketable manifestos ahead of the 2022 polls. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News.
Okay, so the conversation has definitely shifted, and that is the big question. The economy seems to be playing a big part in the ongoing conversation amongst the political class in this country. So as we get closer to the 2022 election date, we hope this will be sustained, but it shouldn't just be hot air, just political promises that will not be implemented at the end of the day. So that's a conversation we're trying to have right here. So in the midst of bottom-up regional urban integration, where does the Kenyan voter place their hopes? Right, where do they place their hopes? So Senator Nyamunga, let me start with you. I'm taking a look at some of the issues that influenced campaigns last year, during the last general election: high food prices, labor unrests, unemployment, security, corruption. This time round, it's all to do with maybe economic models and making sure that money is not lost from government. What say you about this? Is Kenya ripe for issue-based politics as compared to the personality-based politics that we have seen in recent past? What say you?
Yeah, thank you. I think that every time we have elections, we come up with different models to convince our electorate why they should elect a particular party or a particular presidential candidate. And from where I sit, I think in 2007, our main agenda in ODM and our party leader, Raila Amolo Odinga, the issue that we had, and we said it, was about infrastructure. And without infrastructure, you cannot do much. Infrastructure does not mean the roads alone. Yes, the roads, the government has done a lot. They've spent a lot of money, which I still believe that, yes, the roads are very expensive. The railway lines should be very expensive. The waterways, any form of transportation to expand our infrastructure is very critical and very expensive, but not to the extent that we have seen. Infrastructure does not mean transportation alone. Infrastructure means that you have to put structures in place to expand expand the economy such that you can generate more income. and that goes to the type of agriculture that we should be carrying. Kenya is an agricultural land, so we should include infrastructure on agriculture also, and we should not let our country depend on water and on a rain-fed agriculture. We should also expand infrastructure as far as agriculture is concerned, as far as industry is concerned, as far as hospitals, our schools. Infrastructure means a lot. And I think the government has, to some extent, worked on that. But for us now to move our economy from the middle class level to maybe upper middle class, we should now think of putting a lot of emphasis on the infrastructure that will bring the industry on board, the building industry on board, that will bring agriculture, that if I have to do agriculture, I should be subsidized in my input, like the seeds, in the seeds that I get, and the fertilizer, and also not the counterfeit fertilizer. I know a lot has been done on electricity to reach as much as possible, reach everybody as much as possible in the country. But what quality of electricity? Like I sit in my home in the village, and every 30 minutes there's a blackout. So that's not the type of infrastructure that we should put in place. But before we tackle the economy, we must tackle the infrastructure, and proper infrastructure that anybody in the village knows. And we should also put the marketing also in place. It's not just putting you, go to your shamba, yes, I've given you input, produce your eggs. For me, I believe in agriculture and how we can empower women with small things like rearing, poultry farming, dairy farming, horticulture. So I want to make sure that there is that infrastructure that will up the game, that if I produce, I should also be able to sell it, and sell it at a profitable rate. So infrastructure, to me, should be underlying. Then we can be talking of improving the economy and expanding the tax, the number of people that are paying tax. And Kenyans should be made to believe and to pay tax willingly and lovingly, because they know that if I pay my tax, I will get returns. But not just paying tax to a bottomless pit, that you keep losing it and keep losing it, and you keep losing the confidence that you have in your country, such that, Kenyans don't want to pay tax because they know if I pay tax, it will go into individual pockets. So we should make Kenyans believe in our leadership, in our infrastructure, in expanding every aspect of the economy, so that more Kenyans can pay taxes. But it has to come from industries, from agriculture. It cannot come from the type of things that we are being treated to, but proper infrastructure that will make Kenyans do their businesses and get gains from their businesses and expand. I should be able to be supported by the government, and then I should be able to support myself and support other people. That is the type of expansion that we are talking about, and that is the infrastructure that we need. And we don't just want to stand and tell Kenyans, economy, 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 without telling us what is this economy that you are talking about, and how do you want to realize it? So it's not a matter of just standing and talking. It's a matter of telling us the truth and what we can take home.
And I think, let me just pick up from that particular point, Gakuya. Just yesterday, Kalonzo Musyoka was launching his State House bid, and he had this to say about the ongoing conversation around the economic models, especially the bottom-up approach. There are no instant coffee solutions. We cannot elect leaders who seek to exploit our fears for their own political survival. How else will one propose a meaningless model that doesn't reflect his journey, his life journey? We must properly diagnose what ails Kenya and develop blueprints that work. So at the end of the day, Kenyans don't want hot air, definitely want economic models that can be implemented, whether it's infrastructure development, whether it's bottom-up approach. How do you respond to critics that might point fingers in terms of the politics of tokenism, in terms of taking advantage, exploiting the fears of the masses for their own advantage. How do you respond to such when defending the bottom-up approach?
Thank you, Rogers. First and foremost, let us agree that, in fact, every single contender must look for the best blueprint that will woo majority of voters to his side. But out of this blueprint, you find that, in fact, most of the highlighted blueprint goalposts, sometimes you end up even to have somebody's tenure of 10 years without implementing even half of it. And this is something that we must also need to watch and think out of the box. One thing that I want to say is that I agree with the economy under strong economic infrastructure. And that one, there's no doubt. Okay. There is no way you can be able to reach your goods to Mombasa port without having a good railway and without having a good road network. And that has to be. There is no way that you can communicate with a bus from here to Mombasa without having a good road network. That notwithstanding, we must also not forget, as much as we need to have those formidable infrastructure, we also need not to forget about our people, because our people are the dependent of those infrastructures, and therefore they need to use those infrastructures and at least to enjoy them. How do they enjoy them? Because for sure, they need also to have something in their pocket. Then in this particular area is where we must also think on how do we empower them also to enjoy the fruits of their country. And that is the analogy which brings what we call bottom-up. We have been all the years under what we call top-down. And that top-down, actually, when you move to what we call revenue collection areas, it's like we are dependent of those mega companies, those people who are able, those known companies. But actually, we are forgetting that actually every other single person is important in terms of assisting our revenue collection. And if we can empower majority of our people down there, we empower them in a manner that they can be able to build their small businesses and make them strong. They also become part of assisting the government to what we call the revenue collection kitty. And together we'll grow our economy tremendously up. And I am of the opinion that, yes, today we have model where we are saying, yes, we have looked into the issues to do with farmers, but once we move to the farmer, you realize the farmer is not enjoying. Today, there is a serious clamor in the maize farmers. They are still clamoring that actually the maize they produce, the price they are getting, cannot pay their input. You move to the tea farmer. The tea farmer is getting very low deal from 60 shillings per kilo. Last year, he benefited at 30 shillings, 32 shillings, almost half loss of his production. Okay. And if the government is not going to do something at that particular area of need, then who else will come to fix? Then I would say that we need first and foremost to think, how do we move forward? And I am saying the best thing is to make sure that we look the area of agriculture as our supreme economic giant. And how do we do with our agriculture? We have those farmers in Kisii who does produce bananas. Those bananas can be transformed to what we call value addition. And then after value addition, we can be able to sell those bananas at a more value and at a sustainable period. Because currently there is no banana which can last for 3 months after maturity. But when it's done, the value addition, you can be able to keep it even to a duration of a year. Okay. And still sell it at a cost. And that's where we are going wrong, is we have become a dependent of imports. Every day you find that Kenya, at the port, you are finding what we call a number of containers every other single day coming in. But when those containers are exiting, they are exiting empty. This tells you that we are not thinking out of the box. What are we supposed to do to make sure that those containers, after we import, actually does not move out of the country empty? Then we are exporting back. Yeah, and that is the only way. Once we import, we also have a sustainable area of exporting. Okay. And that is how we can strike balance. And this particular case, I would say, this country must move forward. We require a government that will look on the areas where our investors are getting injured, because we are finding that our investors are closing shops here, closing industries here, and moving out of this country to a neighboring country. One, there is an area where we need also to think about. That area is what we call power. Power rates are too high. And let me tell you, most of the manufacturers here will depend on those power. If that power has no control, if that power has no what we call a conducive environment to the consumer, to that particular industry, then that industry will close. Then therefore we need a government that will be able to trickle to see what do we do, how do we balance these rates of power, so that at least we can have a sustainability of these businesses internally. And that is the only way we can be able to be resolving our internal problems.
And the question at the end of the day would be, why not implement that now, Gakuya? You sit in the Legislative House, the National Assembly, which has considerable power in terms of the committees wielding influence, charting the way forward, because these policies, others might argue, already exist on paper. Well, what's so wrong with implementing them?
I can tell you for sure, Rogers, you become a member one day, and you realize that there is, you have your area. You prosecute your business, and then you leave it to an area of implementation and enforcement. That is not the duty of the member of parliament. After you make those good policies, these policies are just crossed in the rocker, and actually they are not enforced. If they are not enforced, then the blame should be always that the parliament is not doing this and this. We have done all this, and I am sure that we have made those good laws that can be able to unlock the problem we are in. But what we are not getting is goodwill from the other end of implementation, where we get enforcement. That is where we need to enforce our laws, because they are all in the locus, so that at least we can move forward as a nation. Because even though you have good kind of colorful, beautiful laws, if these laws are not enforced, then there's a problem.
Okay, so Manyasi, where do Kenyans look to? The laws are there, enforcement might be an issue, policies might exist on paper, but implementation at the end of the day is the missing link, because we don't want hot air from the promises of the politicians, and at the end of the day, we'll be talking about the same thing, implementation. Well, what's your take on this?
Yes, Jesse, the unfortunate aspect about my country, Kenya, is that we have spoken about these things over and over again. This discussion has been going on for a long time. We have even had, I'm sure you have heard many times about Singapore and the fact that this country, the policies that we had were actually borrowed and implemented to the letter elsewhere, and they have worked. We know, for example, that there are a lot of experts out there who are Kenyans, who are shakers and movers in the different capacities outside Kenya, who are supporting and helping other countries to succeed. There's a time that someone even said, for instance, if Obama would have come to run for president in Kenya, and then people have said he's a Luo and not a competent Kenyan for that matter. So all these things have been said because it zeroes down to the fact that we are unable to implement the things that we put on paper to implement. And if you think about basic analogies around why our country has not succeeded that much, and by the way, just to be clear, this country has a lot of potential. The economy of Kenya is so huge compared to other economies in this region. You cannot make any comparison between Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda. You cannot make such comparisons because this country, in terms of its GDP, is big. I say it has a lot of potential because our capacity in terms of human resource, our strategic placement in terms of being the hub for this region. The fact that we are an entry point in this region and goods and services. Technically, international organizations have set up camp here. We have a good climate as a country. So the sky is the limit in terms of how much we are able to do. It's just that we have gotten people in office and ministers, for example, technocrats. One of the failures has been that they have not taken their offices seriously, and they have failed, both Kenyans and the appointing authorities, to deliver on what we have employed them to do. And I can give a basic example. If you look at eggs, for instance, eggs coming from Uganda will always be cheaper than any farmer in Kenya who is producing eggs. So one of the things that you need to do, which is basic, is to look at why is it that eggs coming from Uganda? Why is it that maize coming from Uganda? Why is it that sugar coming from Brazil? Why are all these things, when they arrive in Kenya, they are cheaper than the things that we produce, the same things we produce in Kenya? So once you investigate and find out why that is the case, then it becomes an easier conversation in terms of what is it then that we need to do. When you interrogate an investor living in Kenya and going to set up a factory in Rwanda,
okay,
then you need to interrogate why, for example, this investor will not want to invest in Kenya and go invest in Rwanda. The president, I think in the UK, if I'm not wrong, and other places, has been told, for example, about the fact that his officials have put roadblocks on investors coming to set up shop in Kenya. Why is it very difficult for us to deal with those roadblocks that have always been placed on the way of investors investing in Kenya? So this is not rocket science. For those of us who've gone to school to study these things, for those of us who have the capacity to get these things done, have an observation about what we see, and we have only one conclusion, that there are certain things that as a country, people who've been placed in offices do not want to see coming through. That is the only explanation, because ultimately, if you can work backwards, it's possible to fix this country. It's a great country, like I explained, in terms of potential, in terms of what we are able to do. There are some countries that when some people out there, even Ugandans, when they come to Kenya, they almost have fulfilled one of their dreams, which is traveling to Europe. So we can make Kenya a better country, okay, and we can make it work just by looking at simple things without having to make it complex in terms of the way we need to fix the economy.
All right, well noted. So we can definitely make it work one or the other. Senator Nyamunga, from where you sit, how important will regional interests and their economy play in 2022? What role will they play in 2022? Because I've just seen Ruto charm offensive in Nyanza entered the home stretch, and the leaders from the region demanded a couple of things, including the revival of the sugar industry, optimal exploitation of the blue economy, and rejuvenation of cotton, bananas, and livestock sectors. So from where you sit, how important will this regional interest play a key role in the election year?
Yeah, I don't think those requests, because these requests, we've had them forever. Yeah. Every presidential candidate who comes, he comes with a list. They get a list, they go back with it. I think from the time I became of age and got interest in politics, that was in 1992 up to now, the issues that we've struggled with, we continue to struggle with in my region. But that doesn't stop the presidential candidates or any other candidate to come up, to approach the different regions to give their wish list. In my view, that is not the way that it is going to be critical. But from where I sit, I don't think that should be the way forward. anybody who wants to develop this country should not go regional, but they should be very comprehensive and give a comprehensive manifesto and on the way of doing it. It's not just putting it on paper, but you have to tell us what you will do, say, in the coastal region. What are the issues that the coastal people are struggling with? These things have been there, but the goodwill to do it and the implementation is what is lacking. We don't even need these presidential candidates to go around because already we know what is lacking in all the areas. For example, if you take the former 8 regions in this country, the provinces, we know what is lacking in each province or now in each county. And we know that the most important thing is to empower the county governments, because the moment we empower the county governments with resources, we will solve the problem of development in Kenya. And we don't need a president to go around telling us. If we devolve and we mean it, and we put more resources at the grassroots, at the county levels, sub-counties, and in our wards, in our villages, and the structures that were put in place by the 2010 Constitution, going to the last man at the lowest level in terms of development. I don't think we need anybody to go around again and tell us anything about our regions, because we already know what we need in our regions. All we need is proper resources and then proper management of those resources and actualization of the needs of our people. So that is what we need. The county, that is what we need. But going around telling us from region to region, putting a wish list, that to me doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay, so at the end of the day, as we conclude on this issue-based conversation, Senator, what do you think will form better part of the political conversation going forward into 2022 in terms of the issues on the table? Do you think the economic models will be sustained till the election date? What do you envision?
You know, economic models, yes, that's a conversation, because as we are at a crossroad and Kenyans need seriousness, but not that we don't have seriousness as at now. Seriousness as far as the economy is concerned, we have the seriousness. What I have a problem with in our country, and I don't want always to be negative about my country, is the implementation. The policies are there. People have talked, everything has been put in paper. We have the best. But implementation and prudent use of resources, and putting it in the minds of Kenyans that resources are being used for the purpose for which it is meant. That is what our failure is. We can talk, we can say anything, we can give the best models, but the most important thing is we have to see through these people and see if we are going to get value for what we are looking for. And that is to re-jumpstart the economy. And re-jumpstarting the economy, to me, it's not by handouts, but it is by putting proper structures at every level to make sure that every level is jump-start.
Okay, well noted. So implementation is definitely of key concern, but the conversation has also shifted in the last couple of days in terms of, are we recycling the same old politicians who come up with a raft of new promises? And let's just highlight this particular story that shows the picture of how President Uhuru Kenyatta has sort of officially entered his lame duck presidency, paving way for yet another phase of bruising presidential succession race that for the first time pits a sitting deputy president. With 1 year to the ballot, Duncan Haimba looks at some of the politicians that have officially declared interest to succeed the president. Listen in.
Wenzangu, tusiteleze, tulete demolition squad badala ya wajenzi.
Kenya's 2022 August presidential succession race will be a first of its kind should all factors remain constant. It will be yet another political transition moment that will have, among others, a sitting deputy president. Having served his maximum 2 terms as per the Constitution, William Ruto has repeatedly declared being more than ready for the top seat.
Tafuteni plan. Sisi tuko tayari. Sisi tuko na chama inaitwa UDA. Sisi tuko na mpango inaitwa bottom up. Sisi tuko na wananchi wamejipanga.
After missing the political jackpot in 1997, 2007, 2013 and 2017, ODM party leader Raila Odinga is also set to make a stab at the presidency for a record 5th time, making him Kenya's perennial pollman. Even though he has been beating around the bush claiming to be awaiting the BBI referendum drive outcome.
What I'm doing with Uhuru, we are doing it for posterity for this country. It is not for Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga does not have to be the president of Kenya, but Kenya must have a good president.
Some people are saying our system is not important, but system is very important. And now we are with Uhuru Kenyatta, who is holding the system. So if the system plus our votes, which are always more than the others, what else? What else we need?
Giving a second try will be 2007 presidential candidate Kalonzo Musyoka and 2013's Musalia Mudavadi, both who threw their weight behind Raila Odinga in 2017 under the National Super Alliance.
Yeah, so at 60-something, my friend, if I don't run now, when do you expect I will run?
Mimi lengo langu ni kuwa kutafuta uhai ukiwa sawa, afya ikiwa sawa, na Mungu akikubali kutafuta kuwa rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya kuhudumia Wakenya mwaka.
Debutants in the race will include Speaker of the National Assembly Justin Muturi, immediate former United Nations Conference on Trade and Development Secretary General Dr. Mhisa Kitui. Independence Party Chairman and Baringo Senator Gideon Moi, who is a member of the One Kenya Alliance and who was first elected MP for Baringo Central, then back-to-back as Senator for Baringo County, will also be in the race.
Tunafuata nini? Tunafuata mguu ya ng'ombe. So hii watu wakisukumuza sisikii kwa sababu mimi nafuata.
4 governors now in their second and final terms, Hassan Joho, Dr. Alfred Mutua, Professor Kivutha Kibwana and Wycliffe Oparanya, have also declared their interests. Award-winning gospel artist who holds a Bachelor of Education degree with a major in history, philosophy and religious studies, Ruben Kigame, has officially thrown his hat in the ring, bringing to 12 the number of presidential aspirants so far, with 12 months to go. Duncan Haemba, KTN News.
So far, 12 possible presidential aspirants. I'm sure the number might increase or get less as we get closer to the 2022 general election date. So, Gakuya, from where you sit, in terms of the possible coalition and realignments, how important is it for this gentleman to prioritize their plans right now? Because we've had talk of system is on our side. We've had talk of I won't support without an inch of reciprocity. It seems they're all raising their claim, their stakes as we get closer to the election. How do you view this?
It's nothing new. And it's not a surprise that the time has come. And the time is ripe now for this coalition to come up. The threshold that was realized by our current constitutional order, Rogers, is too high. And none of these leaders can be able to command an election and win alone. And therefore, most of our leaders depends on the strength of their regions. And you find that most of them must pray back and at least strengthen their backyard so that at least they can have what we call a stepping stone to get out of their region out there. And to approach the outside region, then you must depend with other kingmakers outside so that at least you will be able to clinch the support of other regions altogether. And in the scenario we are in now, we have tested coalitions. In the last election, we tested a coalition which was a Jubilee coalition, and we had a NASA coalition. Those were two strong coalitions. And at the end of the day, they wrestled each other, and until the end of the day, we get the winner. In the position we are in, it is very clear that with now the coming down of the NASA coalition, and now the new shape of new dimensions of coalitions, it is now clear offering now that the One Kenya coalition is going on its own. Most likely, at this point where we are, it's like the signs are very clear that most likely we are going to have One Kenya as a formidable force are going for it alone. How they will be able to unite together and agree out of one of them to cling to the presidency, because I'm not finding any sign of BBI to be in place. And therefore, rocking those expansion of executive positions. Therefore, leaving behind only two strong positions, which is presidential and his running mate. It may be a dwindle, but with sacrificing leaders, I am sure it will be possible. And probably in that particular One Kenya, they will be able to come up with the flag bearer and his deputy without necessarily breaking out of it. And the new shape of Odinga, ODM, and the presidential party, the Jubilee, is also now another coalition as it is. No matter whether they will fill the gap with those other smaller contenders, because I am finding a situation where Mukisa Kitui and the Speaker of the National Assembly and those many others, finally they will be able to furnish and they will join those other big parties in coalition. Because at some point, maybe they may not be able to keep it alone, and probably they will join other teams. Which team they will join, the time will tell. I can tell you, at this particular point in time, it is very clear that we are going to have three horses at the end of the day, three serious horses. This is the horse which one will come out of the One Kenya, and the other one which will come out of the coalition of Jubilee and ODM, and lastly, the Hasra Nation.
Okay, so a three-horse race, that's what you envision. Senator Nyamunga, as you add your voice to the possibilities, because politics is definitely influenced by interests, well, what say you about using ethnicity as a single political mobilization tool behind these political formations? Is time ripe for a shift in focus as you conclude?
Yeah, thank you. For me, I don't believe it is important that you have your tribe and you have the support of your tribe or your region. But from where I sit, a leader is always a leader. Once you are born, you are a leader. And I don't think it is correct for anybody to refer to Raila Odinga as a political conman, because this is one person who is very consistent in what he believes in, what he says. He doesn't change his goalposts. He stands for the good and the good governance of this country. It has been there for years. And I want to assure Kenyans and to reaffirm that from where I sit, I know that my party leader has won elections 3 times and he has been denied victory. That is the truth. That is very difficult to remove from the minds of Kenyans. So going by what I say, that once you're born a leader, you are a leader. And you don't need, yes, you need your region, you need your family, you need everybody to support you to move forward as a leader. And that is for all of us. But from where I sit, a leader should be able to cut across. And we have leaders who are coming with their regions and their tribes or behind them. But I know that my party leader cuts across this country, all regions. You go to every corner of this country, he is known, and he can get a vote anywhere in this republic. So it is good to have that, the regional thing, yes. But as a leader, you should be able to have an agenda and a very clear agenda and stand for one thing, that is the benefit and the good governance of everybody, irrespective of where they belong, where they come from, their tribe, their social status. That is what we stand for. And that is what any leader, what he's sold or has sold, should stand for. And if we need to get a good president, we should get one person who cuts across and who does not cling to his region again. I know people are saying, oh, the Western is now with Mudavadi, the Eastern is now with Kalonzo Musyoka. Yes, that could be true to some extent, but I believe that Raila should be able to get, or any good leader should be able to get a election or support, a vote or support from almost all parts of the country.
Okay, well noted. Alex Manyasi, your final take, because it's all to do with succession politics and perhaps the words of President Uhuru Kenyatta as we started that story, tusilete demolition squad badala wa Gen Z, shows the high stakes during this succession period. Your final take on this in terms of the likely turnouts, even as we get closer to the election date?
Yeah, just say the stakes are very high. Yeah, for that matter, the president, just like any other person, but even more for him, is I wouldn't be surprised if he's concerned about then who takes over after him. Concerned because he has done a few things as president during his 10-year term, and he wants to leave office also knowing that he has his interests as well, whether personal or family. The things that are going to shape the way Kenyans will vote, we cannot run away from tribe. All of us know that people feel comfortable. We're still very far from thinking about ideologies around economies only. Kenyans will also want to feel like one of their own is up there. That is a fact that we cannot run away from. But the leadership that we have then ultimately need to assure and guarantee Kenyans that there will be a better economy, that there will be jobs provided, that we shall have a better health care, that our systems of education will work, and ultimately that we'll have a better tomorrow than we have today. So at the end of the day, any coalition or any person who promises most of these things but gets the trust of Kenyans then is more likely to carry the day.
Okay, well noted. Alex Manyasi right there, public policy expert. We appreciate your input, as well as Senator Rose Namunga joining us by way of Zoom from Mombasa County. Thank you for your contribution right here on Morning Express. We're also joined by James Gakuya, Member of Parliament, Embakasi North, as we got to highlight some of the key issues making headlines. Make sure you grab yourself a copy of today's Standard to be adequately informed about some of the stories that are of key interest. As we take a short break, coming up after is all to do with your money. They say a great education is the best foundation for a good life. We will engage about education insurance, all to do with saving for your children's future. And Waithaka Gatumia, the CEO of Centonomy Limited, will help us dissect on this pertinent issue. Stay with Morning Express.